Hey everyone, Joe Ash here. So, some of y'all may remember a few months ago, ChefBear and I were doing speedruns of the game that I created called the Slipstream. And in that time, a lot of stuff were found both between ChefBear and myself, and we were just kind of picking the game apart, looking for glitches and sequence breaks, just seeing just how broken it is. And turns out it was really, really broken. Unfortunately, neither one of us have been running it as of late because we've had like other priorities and other things we've been taking care of. But I thought to myself the other day, not many runs have been done of most of the categories since like the latest stuff had been found and some of the newer routes were created. And so I thought to myself, what if I did some segmented speed runs, like some spliced runs to demonstrate like good runs of each category to show them off as a demonstration, essentially. And so last night I decided to do that, and it was a lot of fun. So what I did was a demonstration run of the all artifacts category. It's a pretty short category. Basically, the goal is to get the items that you get at the end of each main story boss, and then get to the end of the game. So without further ado, let's get rolling. Alright, so we start off in the intro here, and you'll notice on the input viewer, as we're going through the text, I'm actually holding left this entire time. We're actually going to see the first major trick of the game, and this was like one of the last things that was found. And so, yeah, it picks up really, really quickly. So we're going through this normal cutscene, and all of a sudden, oh my goodness, we're back to this screen. And now we're over on this screen. You'll notice that it's actually scrolling back and forth instead of instantly going to the next screen. So basically what's happening here is that you as the main character, your character is like in the middle of the screen, just invisible on these screens, and you can still move around. And you have barely just enough time to hit the edge of the screen. And so what is being done there is you're actually scrolling back and forth between the two different screens so you don't go to the next scene. And so you like reset the timer of each screen, and you're essentially going down to the bottom of the screen by doing this. And now from here you've escaped the intro and you're on this map that's filled with a bunch of cutscenes and a bunch of extra like dev stuff. Like here's the level up shop in its like glitchy state. So there's like cutscenes in here and a bunch of different other rewards as well. One thing in particular we want here is a bunch of dev items, and these are different collectibles in the game, like different special collectibles. These elemental ores you're supposed to get in the post game at the end of each bonus area. These elemental ores upgrade each of your items, but in this case, we're actually going into these dev screens to get them early, and we're going to use them to just get the max level items early, like right from the start of the game. And so since we've gotten that, we're going to head back to where we were before, and we're going to go to a couple of different screens. So since we didn't actually finish the entire intro, we're going to go watch one more scene from the intro so that we can get a couple of items that it gives us on that screen. Basically, the ability to warp into town, because in this game you can warp to the main town of the game from wherever you are, and then go right back to where you were. And not only are we going to do that, but we're also going to go to one particular screen that's in the last scene of the main story, and that's going to actually put us into the post game. So this is the intro screen that I was talking about earlier. Also, I will point out this is not a perfect run by any means. I mean, I basically spent like a couple of hours on this last night. But if I plan on doing more of the categories, I'm definitely going to put a little bit more work into it. But this was just a fun little experiment, and also makes for a good demonstration. Alright, so you notice now we have the crystal. So we're going to go over here to this part 2 screen, and before it scrolls, and before it takes us to its next scene, we leave the screen. And now we're going to stick on this screen, and this screen has a timer as well, because this is a cutscene from one of the secret bosses. And once we do that, we end up in one of the areas. So the nice thing about those 4 screens is we kind of have options on where we want to land in the main world, as opposed to just going as opposed to starting in the first area. So we're going to get the items we need here, and now we're in the Harbor Cavern. And so now we're going to do another trick. This was one of the first tricks that were found. This is known as a screen warp, or I think we call it an orb warp. Basically what this does is if you activate the town warp that takes you to the town and go in an actual warp at the exact same time, what it'll do is it'll actually glitch out and take you to the Zelda 1 key screen, because I mean as you can probably tell, this is a clone of the Zelda 1 engine. So a lot of things from Zelda 1 are present just overall. And so it takes us to one of those key screens. And unlike Zelda 1, you're not like in a corridor, like going downstairs and up and around back to the top of the screen. So since there's like nothing on that screen, you can go to the left or the right. And if you go to the left or the right on the key screen, it basically will screen wrap you to either the left or the right, whichever direction you go in. And so this is really useful for a lot of cases for going out of bounds and sequence breaking to different rooms. And with that, there is our first boss and first artifact. And so now from here, going straight, that boost was unintentional, but I'm really glad that was in there. And so as you can see, us having the already maxed out items, which you're not even supposed to have in the main story, like you only get that in post game. So having these early definitely makes the bosses go down a lot quicker. So yeah, as you can see from some of these fights, some of them are not necessarily perfect, but I tried my best with what I could do. Basically I did this in like segments. And then kept the segment that was best. Alright, so from here we're going to use this raft and head over to the shop, and we're going to do another orb warp here. And what's special about this particular area is we're actually going to enter a screen that's a copy of another screen. But since it's a copy of another screen, if we go down there, it still acts as the screen on the other side of the map, and so we can actually use that to go straight to the final area. So this is the next to last boss, which has the artifact we need. Also, yes, I had very low health. That probably could have been a little bit faster, but I decided to keep that take because it was just cool to see that fight done in low health. This fight is probably not the best either, but this took me a lot of tries, so I just went with what I could do. But in any case, we enter the moon area, and we actually start completing it going backwards, because that's the end of the moon area. And so we backtrack to near the beginning, so we can go hit the switch with the boomerang, so we can access where the boss key is. And so there's a neat little trick here where you have like just a couple of frames, I think it's a couple of frames, where you can jump before you actually fall into the pit. Shoutouts to the very wonky pit script that I had for this game. So, yeah. Kando is also really nice for a lot of this combat since it does multiple hits. Multiple, like, lingering hits. Alright. So now we have this boss. I had originally thought about getting the hand shooter for this, since it's a green weapon and would be really effective towards this boss, but not. I think it's just barely slower. So from here, now we're done with that boss, we're going to do an orb warp here. And we're going to go to the left, and we'll actually end up in the final phase of the Hermitage boss. So most of the bosses, except for a few of them, are all lined up on the top of the screen here. They're kind of lined up next to each other. So this makes it really convenient for a few of the bosses because they're all just right here. So yeah, we can also use this jumping ability. So you might have noticed that we have the jumping ability from the moon, which you're not supposed to have in other areas. But we skipped the triggers that would take away the jumping ability from us. So as long as we skip those triggers, then we can actually take the jumping ability into other areas, which is very, very useful, especially in some of the longer categories, like MST and 100%. And so that's essentially 3 bosses down so far, just back to back to back. And so now we're going to enter this portal. It'll actually take us to the desert area. We'll do an orb warp into the boss room. And we'll jump over here and go back over to this side. Go down here. This is where the final area is. Jump over here, and then we'll end up in the anglerfish fight. So that's 4 bosses, just one by one by one. By one. And with that, we only have 1 more artifacts left. And it just so happens to be the first area that we're doing last. And it's actually for a very special reason. So again, you can see that we still have the jumping ability from the moon, which breaks a whole lot of things wide open. So with boss key in hand, we'll head on to our last boss. And then after that, we have to go to the end of the game. Alrighty. Making quick work here and getting our final artifact. Now it's time to go to the end of the game. Which, quite conveniently, if you go down this river here with the jumping ability, the last cutscene is right here. And that's actually time. I forgot to split. I think that was like a 10-17, I think. So yeah, I think sub 10 would be possible if I put in a whole lot more work in trying to get like enemy RNG to line up a little bit better, but overall, I think in like actual runs, probably a high 10 would be a really good run. Maybe around 11 would also just be considered a good run, with like a high 10 being optimal. But yeah, that is the Slipstream all artifacts. Thank you for watching, everyone.